Jacksonville, Florida, August 10th, 1956. The concert hall was divided. White fans on one side, black fans in the back balcony, separated by law and rope barriers. Elvis Presley walked on stage, looked at the segregated crowd, and made a decision that could have ended his career. What he did next didn't just break the rules, it helped break segregation itself. The divided hall. The Gator Bowl in Jacksonville, Florida, was packed on August 10, 1956. 14,000 fans had come to see Elvis Presley perform, the young singer who was setting America on fire with his fusion of black rhythm and blues and white country music. But the audience wasn't together. They couldn't be. Florida law required segregation of public venues. White fans filled the main floor and the lower balcony, 12,000 seats of prime viewing. Black fans were restricted to the upper balcony in the back, 2,000 seats, the furthest from the stage, separated by physical rope barriers and the invisible but powerful barrier of Jim Crow laws. Elvis arrived at the venue 3 hours before the show for sound check. His manager, Colonel Tom Parker, was already there, nervously pacing backstage. "Elvis, we need to talk about something," Colonel Parker said, his voice tense. "What's wrong?" Elvis asked, still unpacking his guitar. "The venue is segregated. Florida law requires it. The promoter says there have been threats. Some white supremacist groups say they'll cause trouble if you encourage race mixing like you did at other venues." Elvis's face hardened. He'd grown up in Tupelo and Memphis, where segregation was the law, but he'd never accepted it in his heart. His musical influences were black artists, Arthur Crudup, Big Mama Thornton, B.B. King, gospel singers he'd heard in black churches. His music existed because of black culture, and he knew it. "What kind of trouble?" Elvis asked. "Violence. They might throw things, rush the stage, start fights in the audience. The police are here, but they've made it clear. If you do anything to incite, they'll shut down the show and possibly arrest you." Elvis walked to the edge of the stage and looked out at the empty hall. He could see the rope barriers, the separate sections, the physical manifestation of a cruel system. "This ain't right, Colonel," Elvis said quietly. "I know it's not right, but it's the law. And we can't change the law from a stage in Jacksonville. We can only perform and get through this night safely." But Elvis had other plans. The pressure mounts. As showtime approached, tension built throughout the Gator Bowl. Police lined the walls watching for any sign of trouble. White supremacist protesters gathered outside the venue with signs, "Keep music pure," and "Elvis promotes race mixing." Inside, black fans in the upper balcony could barely see the stage. Some had brought binoculars. Others stood, straining to get a view, only to be ordered by security to sit back down. Backstage, Elvis's band was nervous. Scotty Moore, his guitarist, pulled him aside. "Elvis, there's a lot of tension out there. Let's just play the music and get through this night. Don't do anything that'll get us hurt or arrested." "I'm not planning to do anything," Elvis said, but his jaw was set in a way that made Scotty nervous. DJ Fontana, Elvis's drummer, had grown up in the segregated South and understood the danger. "Man, these people are serious. They're not just racist, they're violent. If you challenge them publicly, there could be a riot. People could get hurt." Elvis looked at his band. Good men, worried about their safety and his. "I'm not going to let anyone get hurt, but I'm also not going to pretend everything's okay when it's not." At 8 p.m., the announcer's voice boomed through the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Elvis Presley." The crowd erupted, both sections, white and black, screaming with equal enthusiasm. For a moment, separated by ropes and laws, they were united in their excitement for the music. Elvis walked on stage in his gold lamb jacket, carrying his guitar, and the roar intensified. He waved to the main floor, then, deliberately, pointedly, he turned and waved to the upper balcony. The black fans in the back screamed even louder, thrilled to be acknowledged. The gesture was small, but in 1956, Jacksonville, it was revolutionary. And that was just the beginning. The first act of defiance, Elvis started with Heartbreak Hotel. His voice filled the venue, powerful and raw, and the crowd was mesmerized. He moved through his set. Blue Suede Shoes, I Got a Woman, Tutti Frutti, each song a blend of the black and white musical traditions that segregation tried to keep separate. Between songs, Elvis did something unusual. He kept talking to the entire audience, making eye contact with both sections. "Y'all having a good time tonight?" he asked, and both sections screamed, "Yes." "I want to thank everyone for being here," Elvis said, his voice clear and deliberate. "Everyone in this building, every single person." It seemed innocent, but it wasn't. By addressing the crowd as one unified audience instead of two separate groups, Elvis was challenging the premise of segregation itself. Colonel Parker watched from the wings, sweating. The police watched too, hands near their batons, waiting for Elvis to cross a line. Then, midway through the show, Elvis announced, "I want to sing something special tonight. A gospel song I learned from some of the greatest singers I ever heard. Black gospel singers who taught me everything I know about feeling a song in your soul." He launched into Peace in the Valley, a gospel standard. As he sang, something remarkable happened. Black fans in the upper balcony began singing along, their sardisut, voices carrying down to the main floor. Some white fans, moved by the music, began singing too. For 3 minutes and 45 seconds, the divided audience was united in song. The rope barriers were still there, but the walls were beginning to crack. But Elvis wasn't finished yet. The moment of truth after Peace in the Valley, Elvis set down his guitar and walked to the front of the stage. The crowd quieted, sensing something was about to happen. "I want to talk to you all about something," Elvis said, his voice serious now. "When I was growing up in Tupelo in Memphis, some of the kindest people I ever knew were black folks. My family was so poor, we lived in the black neighborhood because it was the only place we could afford. Black families shared their food with us when we were hungry. Black musicians taught me how to play guitar, how to feel the rhythm, how to put my soul into a song." The venue was completely silent now. Police tensed. Colonel Parker looked like he might faint. "My music, the music you came here to enjoy tonight, exists because of black culture. The rhythm, the feeling, the freedom in it. I didn't invent any of that. I learned it from people who weren't allowed to perform in venues like this, from people who created this music and then weren't given credit for it." Some white fans shifted uncomfortably. Some black fans leaned forward, unable to believe what they were hearing. "I look out at this audience tonight and I see something that doesn't make sense to me. I see people separated by ropes and laws when the music we're sharing came from bringing things together, not keeping them apart." A police officer started moving toward the stage. Colonel Parker frantically gestured for Elvis to stop, but Elvis kept going. "Now, I know there are laws about how things have to be in this venue, and I'm not telling anyone to break any laws tonight, but I want to say something clearly, so there's no misunderstanding. Every person in this building deserves to enjoy this music equally. Every person here has the same right to be close to this stage. Every person here matters the same to me." The upper balcony erupted in applause and cheers. Some white fans joined in. Others sat in shocked silence. "So here's what I'm going to do," Elvis continued. "For the rest of this show, I'm not playing to one section or another. I'm playing to all of you. And I'm going to make sure everyone, and I mean everyone, gets the same experience." What Elvis did next shocked the entire venue. Breaking the barrier, Elvis walked to the left side of the stage, grabbed the microphone stand, and started performing Hound Dog while moving across the entire stage, left to right, front to back, making sure every section of the venue could see him clearly. But halfway through the song, he did something unprecedented. He jumped off the stage. Security rushed forward, but Elvis waved them back. He walked into the main floor audience, still singing, shaking hands with fans, making his way through the crowd. Then he did the unthinkable. He walked to the rope barrier that separated the white and black sections. For a long moment, he stood there, looking at that rope, at that symbol of segregation. And then Elvis Presley unhooked the rope barrier and stepped through it. The venue exploded. Black fans screamed and reached for him. White supremacists in the audience began shouting. Police moved toward him. But Elvis kept going, walking into the area where black fans were seated on the main floor margins, shaking hands, signing autographs, treating them exactly the same way he treated white fans. The police couldn't arrest him. Technically, he wasn't forcing anyone to integrate, and removing rope barriers wasn't explicitly illegal. He was just walking, greeting fans, performing. But symbolically, he'd just demolished segregation in that venue. When Elvis returned to the stage, he was breathing hard, not from exertion, but from adrenaline and emotion. "Let's finish this show," he said into the microphone. "Together." The aftermath was immediate and explosive. The backlash. The next day, Jacksonville newspapers ran competing headlines. Jacksonville Times Union, white supremacist leaning. Elvis Presley incites race mixing at Gator Bowl concert. Florida Star, black newspaper. Elvis Presley challenges segregation, treats all fans with dignity. White supremacist groups called for Elvis to be banned from performing in the South. Letters poured into Colonel Parker's office threatening violence if Elvis ever returned to Florida. But other letters came too, hundreds of them from both black and white fans, thanking Elvis for what he'd done. One letter from a black teenager named James Mitchell said, "Dear Elvis, I was in the upper balcony at your Jacksonville show. When you unhooked that rope and walked through it, you did something I've never seen a white person do. You treated us like we mattered, like we were equal, like the color of our skin didn't determine our worth. I'm 17 years old, and last week I was beaten for trying to sit at a whites-only lunch counter. I was angry at all white people. I thought they all hated us. But you showed me something different. You showed me that some white people understand that this system is wrong, that some white people will stand up even when it costs them something. Thank you for seeing us. Thank you for treating us like human beings. That might not seem like much, but to us, it's everything. Your fan, James Mitchell." Elvis kept this letter for the rest of his life. It was found in his personal belongings after he died. But the story didn't end in Jacksonville. The ripple effect. After the Jacksonville concert, something began to change. Not overnight, not completely, but slowly, venue by venue, city by city. Other performers started following Elvis's example. They'd address the entire audience, not just the white sections. They'd acknowledge black fans explicitly. Some, emboldened by Elvis's action, began refusing to perform at segregated venues altogether. Promoters noticed something interesting. When Elvis performed, when he treated all fans equally, the shows made more money. Black fans bought more tickets when they knew they'd be respected. White fans who believed in integration bought tickets to support artists who stood for something. Economics, it turned out, was a powerful force for change. Venues that insisted on strict segregation started losing bookings. Venues that relaxed their policies, even slightly, attracted bigger acts and bigger crowds. The Jacksonville Gator Bowl itself became a testing ground. After Elvis's performance, they began allowing experimental integrated seating for certain shows. By 1958, they'd quietly dropped most segregation requirements for concerts, though not for other events. Elvis didn't end segregation, noted civil rights historian Dr. Margaret Hayes in her 2003 book, Music and the Movement. But he created cracks in the system. He showed people, both black and white, that the boundaries were artificial, that music could unite where laws divided. Those cracks made it easier for the real organizers of the civil rights movement to push harder, to demand more, to tear down the walls that Elvis had begun to chip away at. But Elvis paid a price for his stand, the cost of courage. In the months following Jacksonville, Elvis lost bookings in several southern venues. Promoters cited safety concerns and community standards. Some radio stations in Deep South markets reduced their Elvis airplay. Colonel Parker was furious with him. "You're risking everything," he shouted during one argument. "Your career, your life, the safety of your band. For what? You can't change the South by yourself." "I'm not trying to change the South," Elvis replied quietly. "I'm just trying to do what's right. Those people come to my shows because they love music. They deserve to be treated with respect. All of them. But the threats are real, Elvis. These people will hurt you." "Maybe," Elvis said. "But if I act like segregation is okay, if I pretend it doesn't bother me, then I'm part of the problem. I grew up with black people. They fed me when I was hungry. They taught me music. They've been kinder to me than a lot of white folks have. How can I stand on stage and pretend that's not true? How can I accept a system that treats them like they're less than human?" Despite the threats and the lost bookings, Elvis never backed down. At every subsequent show, he addressed the entire audience. He acknowledged black fans explicitly. He refused to cooperate with promoters who wanted him to perform only to white sections. In 1957, when asked by a reporter why he risked his career over this issue, Elvis said something that defined his legacy. "Music doesn't have a color. Rhythm and blues, gospel, country, it all comes from people feeling something deep and wanting to express it. When I'm on stage, I don't see white fans or black fans. I see people who love music, and anyone who tries to divide that, anyone who tries to use laws or ropes or violence to keep people apart, they don't understand what music is for. Music is for bringing people together. That's its whole purpose." The impact of Elvis's stand became clearer as years passed. The testimony that mattered. In 1965, nearly a decade after the Jacksonville concert, Something remarkable happened during congressional hearings about the Civil Rights Act's implementation in public venues. James Mitchell, the teenager who'd written Elvis that letter in 1956, was now a 26-year-old civil rights organizer. He testified before Congress about the power of cultural change in advancing civil rights. "I want to tell you about August 10, 1956, James said in his testimony. "I was 17 years old, sitting in a segregated balcony at a concert in Jacksonville, Florida. I'd been beaten the week before for sitting at a whites-only counter. I was angry. I hated the system, and I was starting to hate all white people because I couldn't see how they could allow this system to exist if they weren't all part of it. Then Elvis Presley walked on stage, and he did something I'd never seen before. He looked up at us in the balcony, really looked at us, not through us or past us, but at us. He acknowledged us. He spoke to us. He thanked us for being there. Then he walked to the rope barrier that separated us, and he unhooked it. He walked through it. He shook our hands. He treated us exactly the same way he treated white fans." James's voice broke with emotion. "That moment taught me something crucial. It taught me that this system wasn't natural. It wasn't inevitable. It was just rules, enforced by people, and it could be changed by people. One white man unhooking one rope in one venue didn't end segregation, but it showed me that white people could be allies, that some of them understood this was wrong, that change was possible. When people ask me when I became a civil rights organizer, I tell them, August 10, 1956, at the Gator Bowl in Jacksonville, when Elvis Presley showed me that walls can be torn down." James Mitchell went on to become a key figure in the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC, and helped organize some of the most important sit-ins and protests of the 1960s, and he always carried a copy of that 1956 concert ticket in his wallet, a reminder of the night a white singer showed him that change was possible. But there's one more powerful detail to this story. What Elvis never said, publicly. Elvis Presley rarely spoke publicly about his views on segregation and civil rights. When reporters asked him about it, he typically deflected with statements like, "I just make music," or "That's for politicians to figure out." This frustrated civil rights leaders at the time. Some criticized him for not using his platform more explicitly to advocate for integration. But after Elvis died in 1977, a collection of private letters and conversations revealed why he'd been reluctant to speak publicly. In a 1966 letter to his father Vernon, Elvis wrote, "Daddy, people keep asking me to speak out more about integration and civil rights. Colonel says it'll hurt my career in the South if I do. But that's not why I don't say much publicly. The truth is, I don't trust my own words. I'm not educated enough to talk about laws and politics. I'm just a singer. But I can show people through my actions. I can treat black fans the same as white fans. I can give credit to the black musicians who created this music. I can refuse to perform at venues that treat people cruelly. Maybe that's not enough. Maybe I should be braver with my words. But I figure actions matter more than speeches. I'd rather do one kind thing than say 100 kind words that don't change anything." This letter reveals something important about Elvis's approach. He understood the limitations of his platform and his expertise. He knew that speaking out could alienate fans who needed to be brought along slowly, not lectured. Instead, he chose to integrate his actions, treating all fans equally, crediting black musicians, refusing to participate in the most egregious forms of segregation, and let those actions speak for him. Civil rights leader John Lewis, who later became a congressman, reflected on this in a 2009 interview. "Elvis didn't march with us. He didn't give speeches about civil rights, but he did something that mattered. He used his music to show people that black culture and white culture weren't meant to be separate. Every time he sang a song, he learned from black musicians. Every time he acknowledged his debt to black artists. Every time he treated black fans with dignity, he was teaching his audience something important. Was it enough? No. Was it something? Absolutely." The legacy of that Jacksonville concert continues to the Gator Bowl Memorial. In 2006, 50 years after Elvis's Jacksonville concert, the city of Jacksonville installed a memorial plaque at the site where the Gator Bowl once stood. The stadium was demolished in 1994. The plaque reads, "On this site, August 10, 1956, Elvis Presley performed at the Gator Bowl. During the concert, performed under segregation laws, Elvis removed rope barriers separating white and black fans, treating all attendees with equal dignity. This act of courage challenged the system of segregation and inspired those who witnessed it to imagine a different future. Music has no color. Humanity has no hierarchy. The dedication ceremony was attended by James Mitchell, now 67 years old, who'd written Elvis that letter 50 years earlier. "This plaque isn't just about Elvis," James said at the ceremony. "It's about what we all learned that night, that the barriers dividing us are artificial, that courage doesn't always mean marching or protesting. Sometimes it means just treating people like human beings when the law says you shouldn't. That one person's action, however small it seems, can inspire others to act too." Elvis wasn't a civil rights leader. He was a musician, but he used his platform to chip away at injustice. He showed us that everyone has a role to play in creating a more just society, even if that role is just unhooking a rope and walking through it. The ceremony concluded with a performance of "Peace in the Valley," the same gospel song Elvis sang that night, performed by an integrated choir of black and white singers, standing together without barriers. And there's one final lesson from this story. The story of Elvis Presley at the Jacksonville Gator Bowl in 1956 teaches us something crucial about how change happens in society. Elvis didn't end segregation. He didn't pass laws or organize movements. He wasn't a politician or an activist in the traditional sense, but he did something that mattered. He refused to cooperate with injustice when he had the power to resist it. When venue managers told him to ignore black fans, he acknowledged them explicitly. When laws required segregation, he found ways to work around those laws without technically breaking them. When promoters wanted him to treat fans differently based on race, he treated everyone the same. These actions, small in isolation, accumulated into something significant. They showed people that the system wasn't invincible. They created space for others to push harder. They planted seeds of change that others would cultivate. Think about this. What injustices are you being asked to cooperate with in your own life? What systems exist around you that treat people unequally? And what would it cost you to resist those systems, even in small ways? Elvis risked his career by unhooking that rope in Jacksonville. He lost bookings. He received death threats. He was criticized by both sides, by segregationists for going too far, and by civil rights activists for not going far enough. But he did what he thought was right with the tools he had available. He used his music, his platform, and his actions to say, "This system is wrong, and I won't pretend it isn't." That's the legacy of August 10th, 1956. Not that one man ended segregation, but that one man showed others it was possible to resist, even when the cost was high. And that lesson is just as relevant today as it was in 1956. Elvis froze on stage once as a child, and someone chose to believe in him. At the Gator Bowl in Jacksonville, he stood on stage and chose to believe in something bigger than his career. The fundamental equality and dignity of every person, regardless of the color of their skin. Subscribe to Elvis Presley Legacy Stories to discover more moments that prove courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's the quiet voice that says, "This isn't right," and acts accordingly. Share this story with someone who needs to remember that we all have a role to play in creating a more just world. And the next time you see injustice and wonder if your small action could possibly matter, remember, Elvis unhooked a rope. That's all. He just unhooked a rope and walked through it. Sometimes that's all it takes to show people that the barriers dividing us were never real in the first place.